up and not only supporting your local independent bookstore, Book Passage, 43 years and going strong. For supporting your local, I was going to say your local independent author. Local independent or dependent author. Thank you for supporting and coming out on this lovely Sunday morning. And just to let you know, if you didn't know already, we do have our latest newsletter that covers events for November and December. And even though the holidays are fast approaching, we are still doing book events. And yeah, so please keep coming out and take a break from the shopping and all that stuff. Or while you're shopping at Book Passage, take a break, come to an event. And just to let you know also that our author today is going to be signing books after the event. And one of the best gifts you can give to somebody, a great book that really speaks to them, but then on top of it, it's the first edition and it's signed by the author, maybe personalized. That's fantastic. So early shopping for everybody. And now, if we can, I mean, still feel free to get something to drink and mingle and eat, but I want to kind of get things going a little bit. And we do have two versions of her book, as far as one is paperback and one is hardbound. And both of those are available at each of our registers. So if you didn't get one before we got started here, you can certainly go right after. And Krista's going to stay back and chit chat and sign books. Today, so many people are involved in yoga and/or meditation and other mindfulness exercises that it almost seems like a trend. But in fact, it's here to stay, and it's people genuinely in search of their authentic self. It's healthy and it's commendable. Today's featured book, Will and Mysteria, is the mythical journey of one such man and his friend, an ambitious young professor eager to make a difference in his own life and for others. In reading this, his journey, we kind of find something out about ourselves. Krista Reynolds, the author of Will and Mysteria, tells the story. Krista, not authors, get a woo-woo, so. She tells the story from her heart and her own experience as a seasoned yoga and meditation teacher, which obviously her students are here to support her. She hails from far, far away in Sausalito, and she's here to talk more. Thank you for traveling. She's here to talk more about this lovely and timeless book and Krista's journey, bringing it to life, is her friend Jim Baxter. Please give them both a warm welcome.
So it is on. Great. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here and showing up on this beautiful Sunday morning. I'm nervous, so I'm hoping you'll work with me for just a moment. I would love all of us to take about 5 nice long deep breaths. And you can just kind of follow the sound of my breath through this microphone, and hopefully it'll be supporting all of us, kind of grounding, coming into this space in community. So with that, let's take a nice inhale. And slowly exhale, and just drop your gaze, close your eyes, and just kind of settle into your belly, settle into your hips. Slowly draw a breath in. And let that breath out. Slowly draw breath in. And as you exhale, just gonna let the muscles relax to the bones so that you can just really ground in your chair. Just be here right now in this moment. Slowly draw breath in. And on this exhale, we'll just again feel ourselves grounding, releasing, relaxing, letting the mind soften a little bit around the eyes, the eye temples. Slowly draw breath in. And finally, just kind of let go of all the chatter and just allow yourself to surrender into this moment, this time, this sacred space we've come together in. And just let your breath come back to just a very normal, sweet little rhythm. Now imagine, if you will, that every cell in your body is eavesdropping on your thoughts. Take a deep breath in and let that breath out. Nice. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for that. I needed it. Having come into the room. I love that. Now imagine that every cell in your body is eavesdropping on your thoughts. I don't know why that just really struck me. We're traveling through our world right now, and many of us are feeling really healthy because we're doing yoga, and a lot of us are really struggling because we're not. And our thoughts sometimes get away with us, and I can only imagine the pain our body incurs by listening to some of our thoughts. So it just really struck me when I read that. I'm going to introduce Jen here in just a second, but I wanted to I wanted to share just one little thing, a quote. I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I was paging through the computer, and actually I wasn't even looking around the book. I think I was looking for something astrological, and I ran across this YouTube piece, and it was of J.K. Rowling's commencement speech at Harvard in 2017. I don't know if anyone saw it, but she's an incredibly gifted individual, and she's an unbelievable orator. She's very, very funny. It's a wonderful commencement speech. But what was really touching is that as she went through, she talked about her journey. I don't know if you know, but she was deep in poverty with 3 children when she was writing her first Harry Potter. And nobody was interested. And it was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle. And she said during the speech that her second theme that she really wanted to address was the importance of imagination. And that has been one of my saviors in this lifetime, is the imagination. And I think there's positive imagination and there's negative imagination. The negative being the times we worry, and we worry a lot, and we imagine things happening that aren't really happening. And the other times when we're able to really have a positive imagination. So I just wanted to read a quote that she said in this commencement speech, and it made me just drop in my chair and be like, this is why I wrote Will and Mysteria. She said, she will defend the value of bedtime stories until her last gasp. But more importantly, she said, I've learned the value of imagination in a much broader sense. Imagination is not only the uniquely human capacity to envision that which is not, and therefore the foundation of all invention and innovation. It is argumentatively the most transformative and revelatory capacity, for it is in the power of imagination that enables us to empathize with humans and their experiences that we have never shared. And those, can I ask, who in the room has actually read Will and Mysteria? Oh my God, and you're here. This was an interesting story that I put together. And I wasn't sure if many of us will never experience what Oliver goes through. But it's the use of the imagination and traveling through something that seems metaphoric. So with that, I want to introduce my friend, my beautiful friend up here, Jen Baxter, and she has been so gracious to agree to come up and be in conversation with me, because I feel like you all see me every Sunday. You don't need to hear from me over and over again. So we're going to be in a little bit of a conversation here. And Jen is a native of San Francisco. She and I have been friends for a few years, and I picked her because she's a beautiful human being, but more than that, she's also a copywriter. She's in the writing world. She does amazing work for a lot of different people. She's a spiritual traveler. She travels all over the world. She's done some incredible work, and she's here to help anyone here who needs to really put out their work in the world. She's a fabulous copywriter, so I want you to keep that in mind. And I would like to hand it over to Jen and let her say a few words or begin our conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. I know, isn't Krista special? I'm really honored to be here, so thank you. And really, I'm excited to ask you some questions that kind of draw out of you some of the inspiration and the imagination that you tapped into to do this. Because I feel like with people that I work with in my life journey, many times people have this fantasy of writing something. It can be a personal essay, it can be a book, it can be a blog, whatever. But we rarely make the space and the time in our lives to put energy and effort into it. And you have now just physically brought this into the world, right? So I feel like tapping into part of that with you, is an important thing for you to share with people, because I find that really inspiring. You inspire me in your classes, but now this creative outlet, I think, is wonderful. So I would love to know, tell us a little bit about your yoga and healing journey, and a little bit of your background and all of that, because that's the background, that's really the story in the book.
Right, so this was written 13 years ago. It actually wasn't written currently. So I just throw that out there so that you understand what I'm about to tell you. You all know my history and where I've been in the yoga world, but I felt like this story of how I got into yoga might be interesting. I find it interesting because it unfolded over the course of many years. So I lost my dad when I was 18 years old, and it was hard for me because I didn't have, learned by reading the book, I didn't have the best relationship with my mom. So I felt a tad parentless, quite honestly, and I went off to college, and then I left and went back to Chicago and found my way out to California. And somewhere around the time I was about 25, I had this dream, and it was a surprising dream. It was I was in some place where there was a big palace behind me, and I was running out of the palace down these very wide steps. And it was interesting because there were these women, these three women they were large in the sense, and they were big black buns. They had these long needles going through their hair, and they were sewing tents, like big canvas tents. So again, I don't know where I am, but I'm going down these stairs, and one woman said to me, "Little girl, you look really scared." And my eyes popped open, and it was really funny because my eyes popped open a lot when I was younger. I was mystified by a lot. And I found myself diving into this waterway, and I was diving under all these little arches, all these little bridges, and they were little bridges, not big bridges like we know them, just little ones. And the next thing I knew, I was in the mouth of this big river, and I was floating down the river. And what I did was, in the stream, was I found myself to the side, and there were these big cement steps, and I made my way over in the water, and all of a sudden, as I got there, a hand reached out to me. And I grabbed the hand, and I realized it was a man. He was wearing linen pants with a big drawstring and a linen top, and he was very tan, and he had sunglasses. And I got to look straight at him, and I'm like, "Dad?" I'm like, "Is that you?" And he's like, "It is." And I'm like, "You look amazing. You look tan. You look so happy." And I'm like, "Wow." And he said, "I am." He goes, "I'm doing really, really well." And he goes, "But there's someone I want you to meet." And out from behind came this tall, kind of lanky young man with fiery red hair and these blue eyes. And this young man came right at me, and his blue eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that I woke up. And then I was like sweating. I was like, whoa, that was so weird. So I didn't understand, but here I was having my first dream with my father in it since he passed. And go forward a couple of years, and all of a sudden I'm in a bookstore, and it's like a scene out of a movie. My backpack hits a book, the book falls over. All of a sudden it opens up to this page, and there is the palace that I remembered in the dream. And I looked at it, I picked it up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is India. My father's in India. So I thought, wow, I don't know anything about India. All I know is India and my dad's there at this point. So then I start working at this gym that is across from the Safeway called Advantage Fitness. I don't know if anyone remembers Advantage Fitness. But I was selling memberships there. And I was dating a gentleman that lived or worked down the street, and he came through, and he was passing my office, and he was heading upstairs. I'm like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I'm going to a yoga class." And I'm like, "What is that?" And here I am selling the club. I have no idea what it is. And I'm green with envy. I cannot tell you, because I'm like, what is he up to? So I climb up the stairs, and I'm peering in the window, and I'm watching, and the yoga teacher is a beautiful woman, and I'm just jealous, and I'm green, and so the next morning I wake up at the crack of dawn because I look at our schedule finally, and I see that we offer a 7 a.m. class every single morning. So I shoot into the city that morning, and I go to a yoga class, and lo and behold, I was in love by the second pose. I was like, oh my gosh. And What's more interesting is that I met a lifelong friend that is sitting in this room right here, and he and I practiced together quite extensively back in that day, and his name is Dave. And Dave has fiery red hair and blue eyes. So with that, let's go now forward a little bit further. And one day Mike, our teacher, Michael, doesn't show up. And everyone looks at themselves like, what are we gonna do? And they all look at me and they're like, Krista, you've got this down, you teach the class. So sure enough, I taught the class, I fell in love with it, and months later, I was on my way down to White Lotus in Santa Barbara, and I was getting trained for yoga. So sure enough, I'm starting to study with everybody I can get close to. Tia's Little, I'm going to see Jack Hornfield, Sarah Powers, but Patabi Joyce is my main guy. I am doing Ashtanga yoga at this time, so basically, I'm sort of conjuring up the idea of going to India to spend some time with Patabi Joyce. And what's interesting is a friend of mine gave me a book called Here to Nirvana. I don't know if anyone's ever read it, but it's about going to India, and it's by Ann Cushman, who was the editor of Yoga Journal magazine. So I thought, well, she might know a few things about India, so I'm gonna read this. And I open up the book, and right in the introduction it says, there's a number of reasons why people go to India. They've got a teacher they want to study with, they're interested in the culture. And then she says, but on a rare occasion, blue searing eyes come to you in a dream. Whoa. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just was my dad. Oh my God, he parentlessly as I was, got me into yoga. So anyhow, that's a more important journey than the fact that I've studied Kundalini, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, I do astrology, blah, blah, blah.
It's amazing. I'm so glad I asked you that. So then tell us a little bit about the journey of the book too. And you said you wrote it 13 years ago. Why did it take you so long to get to this place? And also tell us a little bit about the inspiration when you did first write it and how it sort of changed from what it started to what it is now.
So, I don't know why I wrote it, and I kind of don't remember writing it. So it makes me believe that parts of it might have been channeled. I wrote it, and there's a story about why I wrote it in the book, so I don't want to say too much about that, like where the characters kind of came from. But in 2005, I built a board game about world religions called Enlightened, and I think it inspired this story quite a bit because after studying, all the main religions and then 200 other religions, what I realized was the common denominator through all the religions was light. Every single one of them mentioned their connection to the light. And they also, what I felt like, well, where's the light come from? And the light for all of this comes from the sun. We are sourced by the sun. And we want to eat the sun through plants and everything that the sun sources. And so from that, and looking at my phone, I look at 4 phones of mine, and over half the pictures, not half, I'm exaggerating, a third of the pictures are of the sun. The sunset, the sunrise, the sun this, the sun that. And then I look at, just recently looking on Facebook, a third of the pictures I see on Facebook are all about the sun. So what happened here was this book really got inspired by the sun. And you'll know if you read the book what I mean by that, by the luminaries. And I'm an astrologer, so I really do pay attention to the sun and the moon and the fact that they're playing on us all the time. They're giving us the impetus to either brighten or to investigate. I love the moon because she's always asking us to ask questions and to investigate. So I wrote this shortly about 2 years after the game came out. And I honestly, like I said, I really don't know why I wrote it. I mean, I do today, but at the time I didn't. And I pretty much put it to rest. I really did. I didn't feel like it was gonna be anything or go anywhere. And then I had some friends read it a year and a half ago, and I got some encouragement, and that's why I decided, well, maybe now is a good time to put this out there. I hope I answered that question.
So a follow-up to that is, it's quite a short book, 65 pages, and what I found the most interesting is there are exercises at the end of it. So it's an interactive book in a way, and I thought that was interesting. I haven't seen that before. So tell us just a little bit about, and especially we started this, you opened this with the breath and breathing exercises. So talk about making that choice too, because you don't see very many short stories that end with something interactive to do.
Yes. So 2 books I loved growing up, and I think probably more than half the room here knows exactly these books, was I loved Richard Bach's Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's just a great story. And the other book was The Little Prince. And I really felt like people really love those books and they become timeless. And I don't know about any of you, but I have got 5 books sitting next to my bedside and I haven't finished any of them. And I mean to, I want to, but it's like I just don't find all that time because we're barraged with so much information in this day and age. So I thought, what could be something that could be a sweet story, you get something out of it, and of course my goal here is that you pass it on, you gift it, you give it to somebody. And so that was sort of, I also realized that, I once upon a time tried to start a company of short film, and realizing that our attention span has gotten shortened, and it's not that we want it to, because I think we all love a long good movie that takes characters and gets into the depth of them. But this story feels like there's a lot there. Most people who read it have told me they've read it twice, because I pack in a lot of stuff, and relevant or unrelevant to your life, I don't know. But anyhow, that was my thinking was, it's nice to finish a book.
And also there are discussion questions in there too, and you just mentioned sharing. And actually there's a page at the back that says, please share this book. So do you have the intention that people read it in a group, or that people pass it on to someone, that it's something that's really supposed to be talked about and more of an interactive book than like a novel that you read and then put away?
Well, yeah, I would love, I think it's an easy, I think most book clubs would be thrilled to get a 65-page book. And then to have I think the story's got a lot of little themes in it. And it's an opportunity for, again, a reflective read, hopefully, a meditative read, that's what I was hoping for. And an opportunity for all of us to sort of just, inquire, get connected, because every one of us in this room breathes, and every one of us has an ego, and every one of us, is working with these parts of ourselves all day long, every day. And I think by hearing other people's stories about how they deal or how they come out of mental misery or struggle or whatever it is would be really enlightening for a lot of us. And so I was hoping that it would be a book club, something, and I'm happy to come to any book club.
Okay, so without giving away too much of the story for the people who haven't read it too, let's talk a little bit about characters and kind of who they are and what they do. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of an outlier though, because you talked about your dreams and you talked about the sun and the light. So I love this character of Raluna, and especially at that particular juncture of the story. And so can you tell me a little bit about that and the inspiration for that and the significance of Raluna in the story?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying about all the religions having light as a common denominator. And I think with this story, I wanted to, I felt like what happens is we put so much energy on an individual and we lift them up, and often we then drop them. And I felt like, gosh, what if we let everyone just be? What if we let everyone be, and that the powers that be that we could really connect to were part of nature, part of our nature, part of the nature that we get to experience being on this planet. And I felt like the luminaries were the two entities that just always exist. They're always there. And I felt like they run the yin and the yang in each one of us. And one of the themes I touch on so briefly is that, as we're having so many gender issues right now, that there's a male and female, operating in each one of us, no matter what your external body looks like. And could we like relate on that level to each other and know that, you know, I see the male in you and I see the feminine in you. And I think that would just be really sweet, rather than I see you as this dominant leader with all this knowledge, with all this wisdom, and I'm gonna bow down to you, and I just feel like that's not necessary anymore. I think we need to stay connected at just a more beautiful place of who we are, like just luminaries. We're all luminaries. We're all light source. We're sourced by light. Every cell in our body is sourced by light. And so wouldn't that be beautiful if we could just all see that in each other and connect on that level? And I think we could all carry each other to beautiful places and really help and support each other. So that's what I was hoping for with it. Not to change your belief system by any stretch, just to open up to maybe something that's a little more, maybe secular, but that's okay in this day and age.
Yeah. And so you just said too that you feel like in our culture too, we lift people up and then we drop them. And that reminds me, so Oliver, there is a point in which he tries to fly. That can be too much joy too, right?
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the symbolism of that in the story too, and then this idea of wings.
Excellent. Yeah. It's funny. I learned about the story and about the characters Will and Mysteria in Greece, and then a friend of mine read it, and she said, "Oh, this is a modern day Icarus," and I was like, and I'm embarrassed to say I never read Icarus, so I didn't actually know. When she said that, I was like, "Oh yeah," but I'm like, I haven't read Icarus, so that was embarrassing to say the least. But with that being said, I feel like who in this room has had a flying dream? More than half the room. And I think our souls want to soar, they want to fly. We, in our own way, in our own individual way. And I felt like even though here we are, we're still pretty grounded unless we use electronics and what have you to get us to fly. And I just felt like this is, I felt like this is an age-old story that has been around for a long time, and it allows us to try something that seems impossible. And to do the impossible, we need what I would believe is a co-creation. And I find that to be with Ra Luna, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it. I was laughing with Jen as we were chatting the other night, and I went out on Halloween, and honest to God, like every third person had wings on. Every dog had wings on. And I was like, and so I just thought, I think a lot of people want to fly.
Yeah, it's true. I was wearing wings that night.
That's so crazy.
So, what I was going to ask you was the idea of will and mysteria, really, and the idea of the breath, right, and using the breath in that. Just talk to us a little bit about sort of the inspiration for those names, and then also the theme of that through the book, and how that ties into the whole thing. Because again, like I want to go back to this idea of it's an interactive thing. Like there are questions at the end, right? There's exercises. There's actually even some of the text that's highlighted, right, to get you to stop and slow down and check your breath. I love that aspect of it. So just give people a little bit of an idea of will and mysteria and this theme of the breath, and how that is something that we need to all pay attention to every day.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I take it for granted that I breathe, and I forget to breathe a lot, and I'm a yoga teacher, so go figure. I needed a way to remember. I needed a way to build a relationship with my inner world. And I was putting so much attention on the outside world and wanting so many things to happen outside of myself that weren't happening. I kept trying, and I felt like I was climbing up a mountain and sliding right back down. And what I realized was I would wake up morning after morning barraged with thoughts. Some of them okay, some of them troubling, some of them fearful because I'm a single woman living on my own, trying to figure it all out. And what I realized was when I caught myself after whatever it was, 10, 15 minutes of those thoughts passing through. And I started to just sort of engage my breath and I just listened to my breath, will and Mysteria. That within a few minutes, I had forgotten all the things that I had just been worrying about. I'd forgotten all the things I'd been thinking about. And I was able to just get up and go find my favorite barista and get my coffee. And so I realized that if focused, if we really take time to slow it way down and just really listen to this inhale and this exhale, that they have unbelievable capacity to help us and heal us. And I'm presently under a training called Revelation Breathwork, and it's based on the whole entropic breathwork that was done back in the day with Stan Groff, and I actually got to study with him way back when, which was pretty amazing. And we're having extraordinary breakthroughs, like breathing at this optimal level. It's like, and people are doing that for 30 minutes, and it is really mind-blowing. It is taking people to incredible places, and it is kind of taking them down memory lane. It's taking them into things that happened to them when they were children, and it's helping them. And along with it, we, I give them the permission to make noise and to scream and to let it out, because we're all keeping it together so nicely on so many levels, but we're all getting sick too for keeping it all in. And so it was interesting because yesterday I had a group of women and one man, and we were breathing, and the music was cranking, and we were screaming, and I got kicked out of that place. They won't let me because there were massages going on next door, and I don't think they appreciated that. So, new venue, anyone? But anyhow, I at the time, I somehow must have known how powerful will and Mysteria are to all of us finding that groundedness, that presence, that healing capacity. So I hope you'll all come to a breath work with me at some point. Scream, have fun.
That's great. Okay, I will. Okay. All right, so we're talking about this idea of flying, right? How our spirit really wants to soar. And then also the breath, and there's such a healing power in the breath when we can tap into it. Right, so then this other character of Edgar, the ego. So talk to us a little bit about how you see Edgar and the role he plays in the story, but then also the role he plays with your spirit wanting to soar, and how you can tap into sort of the power that you have with your breath.
Thank you. Really good question. I hope I can answer it.
Of course you can.
So Edgar is Edgar's something, it's interesting, when I first started yoga, the one little downloadable thought I had as we get different thoughts when we're opening up to yoga, was that yoga is here to disseminate the ego. And I had this thought 20 some years ago when I started yoga, but I actually did not know what I was talking about. It was just a thought. And I saw over the last 20 years how cunning and baffling the ego actually is. And so I felt really that Edgar had to be in this story, because I've been tripped up numerous times by my ego. I have, it's in the sense that it's cunning and baffling, it's not just having that overpowering, dominant ego like a president, we all know. It's also the other side of our personality, the side of us that gets bored, that yawns, that gets fearful, that doesn't show up, that doesn't do all these different things. And so it's part of us that, and it was a part of me that I had to spend time getting to know. And I was really fearful of being vulnerable. Like in the beginning of my yoga world, I remember probably 4 years in, I was teaching at the Bay Club and my back went out. I mean, I was in the emergency room. I was crawling around the emergency room, and they gave me this ugliest brace you've ever seen, and they're like, you're gonna have to wear this, and we don't know what to do for you. So I put on the sloppiest clothes and stuck it on my body and went and taught yoga. And but I had no wherewithal to tell anyone that I had a bad back. Like, I didn't think it was gonna be okay. I thought my students would not stick with me if they knew I had a bad back. That's how diminished my ego was when I first started yoga. And it was amazing because breath by breath, class by class, struggle by struggle, getting to know my students, who I mentioned in the book are some of my greatest teachers, I learned to be vulnerable. I learned to share that, wow, I'm having a crappy day and I'm gonna do the best I can today to be here for you in this class and to teach you. But I'm upset, I'm scared, my face is breaking out. It was just numerous things, and I didn't have the luxury because I've been on my own in Marin for many, many years. I didn't have the luxury to say I'm sick, I'm not coming in. I did on a rare occasion when I was really, really sick, but for the most part, I just showed up. And in that, I had to learn a lot about my ego. I had to learn a lot about myself and my vulnerability and my willingness to just, be human. And so the ego to me was something I just had to unpack and unfold over many, many years. And so that's why I felt like Edgar had to be a part of the story, because I think all of us are unpacking that in some form or another.
Absolutely, yeah. Which reminds me, actually, another interesting part was that after you wrote the story, you met someone in real life. The story of this man that you met in real life that you put at the end of the book. And I think that that's kind of an interesting sort of play about how sometimes we write things or we create things and actually then we manifest them in real life. And this idea that this is someone who actually has been through that entire ego journey, right? And come to a completely different place in his life.
Yes, thank you. You'll see it's the last page of the book, and or the second to last page. It's a beautiful man that I got to know just recently, literally when I was doing the final proof of my book. And I have a wonderful friend that lives about 4 doors away from me named Tracy. And interestingly enough, this process, I didn't share with a lot of people I was doing this book. I sort of kept it to myself because my ego had shared a lot in the past and I never got anything done. So I decided I would just keep it quiet and get it done. So interestingly enough, I'm on a walk with Tracy through Sausalito, which we did, frequently. And she starts to tell me that she's been hanging out with a really wonderful young man over in San Leandro who is a quadriplegic, and he is basically learning to really find some beautiful different aspects and new uses for his body. And so anyhow, I was intrigued, super, super intrigued. So I was blown away too while I was listening to her share what she was sharing about him. So I reached out to him. She was great to connect us. And I went over and spent a whole day with him in San Leandro. And I'm really sad because last night he called me. He so wanted to be here, like more than anything. And unfortunately, he's today dealing with a health issue, which he just couldn't get around or get here. But we talked last night for about 2 hours, and he is just a very special human being doing incredibly spiritual work. And he's working with sound, and he's working with his breath, and he's working with a lot of different avenues of the healing world, and he is having extraordinary experiences. And his platform and his website is in the book. And if you're ever curious, I really encourage you to reach out. One of the things he told me last night is when he was young, he wanted to be a pro soccer player. And his mom said to him, if you get an education, I know you're completely able to do anything you want to do. And unfortunately for him, when he was in ROTC, when he was about early 20s, he had a horrible accident, and that sort of ended the idea around soccer and around becoming a professional soccer player. But what's really beautiful is that he is the coach of power soccer, and his team has won and all over the world in power soccer, using wheelchairs. It's pretty amazing. So anyhow, I wish you were here. I wish I could have had him share this experience with us because he's a pretty amazing human being, and hopefully someday you'll all get to meet him or at least reach out to him.
Thank you. And so with the character of Oliver, too, with that, I'm curious about, how would you describe the transformation in Oliver's mind and his life and his body, right? That happens from where he started until where he ends up, and also the transformation internally that happens with his parents, his family, and how he sees the world around him.
Well, I don't want to say too much. Again, a lot of people in the room haven't read it, and so I want to be, I think we're sharing a lot here right now. It's a hero's journey. It really is. It's just another hero's journey, and I think, can't read enough of those because we're all trying to get into that place. And many of us, it's an exemplary place in the sense that we've accomplished some major corporation or done some major feat or something. And I kind of decided this hero's journey was going to be a return back to being the hero inside yourself and being your own hero. And that's what I'm hoping to get across is that I know I reach out all the time wanting to be someone special, but I'm just no different than anyone else that I'm in the presence of. I mean, we're all the same. And I feel like I have just such a more beautiful experience with people just being present, just being with them and being just me and not having to need to be anything other than that. And so this is sort of an inverse of the hero's story, maybe. I don't know. You guys will be the judge of it. But my hope was that you might explore that for yourself. Like, who is the hero in you and who are we inside of ourselves?
So with that, can I ask an audience question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious along those lines, just raise your hand, any of you who either have something in your life that you've always, really special, that you've always wanted to do, that you've stopped yourself from doing, or something that you wanted to write that you thought, I can't do that, I don't have the time, or I can't do it. Or just raise it, hand raise. Yeah. Okay, all right, good. Okay.
Well,
Do you have an audience question?
I'm curious about those of you that raised your hand about flying. I'm curious if someone would like to share just a minute or two about their flying story and what that felt like, because I think that's an important feeling. Anybody? Anyhow.
Well, I remember when I was little, I always wanted to be a bird, really little, because I wanted to just be free and be able to just do whatever I wanted and go wherever I wanted. And recently I had a dream where I don't remember exactly the dream, right? But I remember that once I recognized that I was in the air, at first I think there was some danger. Maybe I was falling. And then I realized that I could control my flight, and I could soar, and I could go wherever I wanted, and it was just like a really strong message.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's your inner world that's guiding all of this. Yeah. Rather than someone outside of you.
Right.
Like thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Yes.
Just an added to my flights and always discovering and seeing the world from down below, that perspective. But I always enjoyed with, whether it was a sister or a friend, trying to teach them the steps and the jumps to be able to get up and fly and get them to fly with me. So you had a partner up in the air.
I love that. I actually talk about that in the book, and that's a big part of Edgar's journey, is exactly what you just said. So thank you. Anybody else?
I oftentimes, there are times that I fly very frequently, and I remember, it's typically in my dream, but it feels so real many times in my dream that I'm so concerned somebody will see me, and then they will freak out. Like, what? Why are you? And I just, in my dream, I'm always concerned that I should pay attention and not fly while anybody is looking, or should go behind the buildings.
So that's a really interesting Edgar at work. Yeah, because there's a part of you that, maybe that's what's stopping you, what other people are thinking. Maybe you might let go of that.
Oh, and yeah, sometimes I actually just don't really mind, and especially if I feel that there's danger, that I feel, I should really start flying now. And it doesn't matter that they notice.
Yay, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think we all, I love that story because there was a woman at a Renaissance fair. I was with my mother, and she was getting her tarot read, and this woman walked up to me, and she was an older woman, and she wrapped a cobra snake around my neck with the face looking like this.
Oh my God.
And the tongue was going like this at me. And I was like, I'm just sitting there. And what was interesting is that she had, every part of her face was wrinkled. Every single part, with these blue eyes again. And I was just sitting there and I was like, okay, like, what does this mean? What do you want? Like, and she said to me, don't you ever worry about what anyone else thinks. And I was like, okay. I walked away. And she unwrapped the snake and just walked away.
Wow.
And so I've never forgotten that. And yet I do forget about that because I do make the outside world important. And it is to a varying degree. It really is. I don't want to dismiss that because our loved ones are our outside world. But I think when we start doing yoga and we start breathing together and we start really being vulnerable and not running from that fearful, Edgar or whatever, we do connect. And the outside world then is a reflection of us, which is super, super beautiful. So, anyone else? In order of time, is there-
We have a little more time. Actually, you know what I'm curious about too is if we go back to the breath. How many people can actually recognize when they stop breathing sometimes? Whether you're in traffic or you're stressed, right? Like we just stop. Yeah. Yeah. I realize that I do it when I'm sitting in traffic. I'm like
Cursing.
and cursing. Where are a few other places that people recognize like they stop breathing?
Yeah, okay. Fear.
Fear? Yeah.
The dentist.
The dentist.
Yeah.
Doing high cardio. That's when you're like, come on, you're supposed to be breathing.
Oh, wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Do you have any questions? What, you wanna open it up for?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have a few minutes, and anyone who maybe has or hasn't read the story has a question, I'm happy to try to answer.
I just wanted to add to the idea of flying. When I was young, I would go to sleep and wake up in a dream after having flown. And why I flew was to be able to have control over where I was and who saw me. And I'm really grateful that you brought that into the book because it was a feeling, because I always had to take a running jump to get started, that made me feel so good. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So, I'm curious how you feeling about all this, like, here you are today. Been a long thing, you've done many projects, and I know you probably have many to come, but this is the big day, how you feeling about it?
Well, I feel like I'm looking out at love, and so that makes me feel really good. I just see a lot of beautiful faces, people that have been in my life for a long time, and believed in me because you're still here, so I so appreciate that because I have tried a million things, failed at many, and or let go of them. I don't know if I always failed. I just didn't feel like maybe the support was there, whatever it was that was needed to push it along. And so I feel blessed. My class earlier today, I felt just immense gratitude because some of the people in the room, in the yoga rooms, have been with me 15 years, which is amazing, and I'm so grateful for that. I have other people in the room, like I spoke of Dave and Louise and Pete and David Adams here and his brother. They've been in my life for like 25 years, and I have just immense gratitude for their love, their support, them putting me in my place a handful of times, and which I needed because I could get ahead of myself. And they've been like family, and I feel like a lot of my students have been like family. Sumi here is helping. Daria has been as dear as anybody could be to me in Sausalito, and she helped me with a few of my crazy ideas and hung in there and didn't judge me, so thank you. And I just feel good. I feel blessed today, very, very blessed, and it feels like a long journey. And I feel like I'm stepping on, hopefully, a new journey. I don't know what that means. It's funny, I lost half my hair this year, and now it's all growing back. And so if you see these little flyaways, it's because I'm getting new growth, new hair. And so I feel like I'm on to something possibly new, hopefully. I don't know. But thank you. That's a nice question. Thank you.
You mentioned your breath classes. When do you offer them and where?
Well, they were going to be Wednesday nights, but I don't know that that's gonna happen anymore. I seem to just, I kind of upset the apple cart. So Tuesday nights, I will be offering them at 6:15 in Mill Valley at a new little place called the Living Room Collective. And it's on the backside of El Paseo on Sunnyside. That's where it's located. And it's just an hour-long class, and we will be doing breath work there. So until we get kicked out, we'll be doing that. And so far, that's probably it for right now until I find another venue that will let people scream. Thank you for that question.
Anyone else? Anything else? Any comments for anyone who has read the book, or anything you want to say or share?
I just want to share, I've known Krista for actually about 27 years. I've traveled with her on many a journey, and both literally and figuratively, and I just probably can speak for all of us. I'm very proud of you, and brings tears to me, just real clear. And to manifest, and you've been, I might kind of call kind of a closet teacher from all these years, and now you're actually, you're doing it in your class, but now you're an author, and you're published, and you're speaking from your heart, and I'm going, wow, this is sounding good. So I think we all encourage you, but if you look at a lot of these people on the wall here, Robert Cray and all these people who were authors, they didn't start that way. I saw John Grisham here for his first book, and he wrote the book in between briefs when he was sitting in court, and that's how it started.
Right.
So if this seems to be your path, I support you in doing all this.
Thank you, David. Well, is anyone else got a question? Otherwise, yes, please.
I just want to say one thing. If we give away our books to someone else, then that person's not buying the book.
Yeah.
Which is important. But also, I like to keep my books.
Yes.
So
So
maybe.
buy 2 of them. Well, so, okay, in this modern age, you have to give up the idea that you're gonna get really wealthy as an author. I'm a first-time author. I'm a first-time author. It is not happening. But, and I shouldn't say not, but I felt like, I imagined this book in someone's hands, getting on an airplane, reading it on the duration of the flight, and then handing it to some stranger. And in it, you write in the back your name, your city, your state. And they hand it to another person, and they hand it to another person, and maybe 6 months down the road, someone gets a hold of you on Facebook and says, look at where your books traveled. Look what you gave away. Look what you gifted to the world. And that was my hope, that, all of you would be gifting, to other people. Because a lot of people, I don't think, recognize the power of the breath, and they don't recognize how much we need to connect with our inner world. And I think it would be a great gift for everyone. It's a tough story. It's a hero's journey, again, but thank you. So buy 2. Yes.
One more question?
One more question.
Well, I was just imagining that it would be so wonderful if you also read the book to put it audible with the beautiful sound.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Thank you. That has been mentioned one other or a few other times. So yes, it's to be considered. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. I want to, just before we finish, I just want to again thank some amazing people. John Dahl here has been dear and so helpful in me putting this book together. He's videotaping. He's a wonderful human being, and thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. Sumi's back there serving mimosas, and she's been amazing. Daria provided a bunch of food, and she's been the dearest friend of mine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dave Murphy has been on this journey of yoga with me since way back in the day. Thank you. You've been amazing. Jen Baxter for showing up today as a dear friend and being part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
It's been an honor, thank you.
And just, I don't know if she's in the house, but Denise Dresser gave a beautiful quote. She's dear to me. Richard Polsky gave an amazing quote. Thank you, Richard, if you're here. Peter Coyote, I was shocked. He read it. He gave me a beautiful blurb. Thank you. I don't think he's in the house. Mary Sherman here, who, yes, inspires always and helped me tremendously. Tracy, who connected me with Chris Finn, thank you so much. Book Passage for making this possible, that all of us could be here to share great stories. I've been here numerous times, and this is fun. Keep supporting books, keep supporting authors, keep supporting reading. We need this, so thank you. Please enjoy some mimosas and Alstein books, and lovely. Thank you again, Jen. Thank you.
More authors like you, encouraging people to buy many books. So we do have a little paperback that we do have them in paperback and hardbound. So that's great. So you have an option, but they're both very light and affordable, and great to take on a plane when you sleep in the next reader. We will form a line down the middle. We're going to put little yellow sticky pads in there so she can see who wants their book signed.